Hello, everyone. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, here with you today. I want to talk about the importance of detoxification. This is something that is so commonly overlooked, but yet so important to our existence. And we know that we are continuously exposed to toxins. We have to recognize this, we have to realize this, and we need to take action on this. Most people don't know that they actually track the amount of toxins Americans are exposed to. They do this worldwide as well, but here in the United States, the National Institute of Health and the CDC actually track. They do samples of urine and blood to detect levels of toxins, these chemical exposures to Americans throughout the entire country. And they test for over 212 different chemicals. And it's really quite alarming to see how loaded up Americans are when it comes to chemicals in your body. And this is a major problem when you think about what those chemicals are actually doing. I mean, clearly some of them have been linked as carcinogens, so leading to certain cancers. And most people are familiar with Roundup, for example, and the correlation with exposure to different pesticides. But there are so many different toxins out there that we're exposed to, from the pots and pans that you cook in, to the lotions that you put on your skin, to different plastics that you store your foods in. So there's so many different ways in which we can get exposed to these toxins. So what we need to make sure is that our body can actually handle this and manage it. Well, our body comes naturally equipped with its own detoxification process, and there's these different phases, and this is known as metabolic detoxification, which is really, really important. And we know that as we get older, sometimes that detoxification process begins to kind of get a little sluggish. And it makes sense because we've been exposing our body to all of these different harmful things, and the body starts to get wore out. We also know that there's other things, I mean, medications that people are on. And obviously, things that you're exposed to in your foods, for example. So, we have to make sure that we are taking care of that very important process of metabolic detoxification. So, how do we do that? And why is that important? Because when you think about the liver, this is going to be our main detoxifying organ. And most people realize this. And oftentimes people think about detoxes or cleanses as like this crash thing that you're going to do to try to rid the body of all of these harmful chemicals. But what we should be actually thinking about is doing this on an everyday, regular basis to make sure that we are supporting our liver and our kidneys to be able to filter through all of those harmful exposures. And unbeknownst to us, many times we don't even realize that we are exposed to these things. So, we have to protect our liver. So, how do we do that? Well, one of the most important things in the body is dimethylglycine. And dimethylglycine is important for many different reasons. Number one, we know that dimethylglycine, which is a substrate that's made from glycine, which is an amino acid, but we know that dimethylglycine plays an integral role in methylation. But we also know that dimethylglycine is a precursor. It helps to produce glutathione in the body. So it's glutathione is our primary endogenous antioxidant. Very, very important. So we know that DMG, or dimethylglycine, helps our body produce additional glutathione. This is so, so important for us. But we also realize that pretty much every single cell in the body and every single metabolic pathway in the human body is reliant on dimethylglycine. So we can look at it as being the building block for the synthesis of things like choline. Well, why is that important? For our brain, for memory. Why is it important to make sure we have dimethylglycine for methylation, for glutathione production, but also for the production of different hormones and neurotransmitters? This is so incredibly essential. And as we get older, our body produces less and less of that. Now, in terms of dietary exposure, most people are not getting enough intake of dimethylglycine just from their diet alone, which is why supplementation is really, really important. So when you think about different foods that could potentially have dimethylglycine in it, we think of things like pumpkin seed, beans, for example. So once again, we're kind of following that trend of a Mediterranean diet, which we know most Americans are not adhering to. So this is once again another reason why we are lacking in this really, really important nutrient. Now, one thing that they can do is they can actually test your blood levels. They can see how much dimethylglycine is in your system. Now, here is a really, really interesting point because we think of DMG and we usually think of detoxification. We think of manufacturing glutathione. But here's a really fabulous way to understand the true importance of dimethylglycine in the body. In the Diabetes Journal back in 2015, they actually published their findings of low levels of dimethylglycine as being a precursor to the development of type 2 diabetes. Yes, as I mentioned, dimethylglycine plays this essential and critical role in so many different pathways in the body. And what they actually were able to do is they were able to look at the serum blood levels of dimethylglycine. And they found that those who had the lowest dimethylglycine levels actually had higher blood glucose levels. So we know DMG is really, really critical to our overall health and just to our existence. All of those cells are reliant on this. So I wanted to highlight a particular product that has dimethylglycine, and this is Gluta HX. And the Gluta HX formulation is certainly targeted towards detoxification, but it's so much more than that. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today because it has dimethylglycine in it, but then it also contains selenium. We know selenium is a very critical trace mineral that plays a real key role in detoxification. And in particular, when we think about heavy metal exposure, and many Americans are exposed to heavy metals, things like mercury, lead, arsenic. And we know that selenium is very key in terms of the body being able to bind and get rid of those heavy metals. So the Gluta HX actually contains dimethylglycine along with selenium. It also contains alpha lipoic acid. And you think to yourself, I know I've heard of alpha lipoic acid. Yes, it's another one of our endogenous antioxidants. And one thing that we know about alpha lipoic acid is it's really, really important in terms of stabilizing our other antioxidants. So things like glutathione, catalase, superoxide dismutase. So alpha lipoic acid is a major power puncher when it comes to targeting oxidative stress and free radicals in the body. So the Gluta HX formulation contains alpha lipoic acid, that very important trace mineral selenium, along with dimethylglycine. But we don't just stop there. This also contains parsley extract and spinach, which we know are really wonderful when it comes to detoxifying our little tiny cells. And we know just from science alone that our cells are generally bogged down with a lot of junk that shouldn't be there. And so when I say that they track and trend how many chemicals Americans are exposed to out of this 212 that they actually look at. And they see this, they can detect this in urine samples, they can detect this in blood samples. We know we should be doing more. We should be adhering to a Mediterranean diet, but we should also be taking care of, at minimum, our little hepatocytes, which are your liver cells. And you cannot find a better supplement to do that than dimethylglycine. So I certainly encourage you to check out the Gluta HX. I am a huge fan when it comes to focusing in on detoxification. I always say, even if you're eating clean and healthy and you're living a healthy lifestyle, it's still advantageous to make sure that we are supporting that metabolic detoxification pathway in those different phases because you're still breathing in different chemicals. You're still exposed to things, even if you're trying to be incredibly careful in terms of your dietary intake. So definitely check it out. Gluta HX. It is a wonderful, wonderful formulation. I'll be back with you in a few more days to talk about more wonderful formulas available at InVite Health. Thank you.